Welcome to Work Life by Design. I'm your host, Mel Marsden. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that change is inevitable and we no longer need to go to work to work. As a workplace dynamic strategist and the founder of COMUNiTI, I draw back the curtains on my own business, the clients and projects that we deliver, along with tapping into the knowledge and insights from academics, business leaders and champions of change. I believe that our environments have the power to positively influence our behaviour and performance, inspiring our human potential. Now today I am bringing you part 2 of my conversation from the Brisbane launch of my book, The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments that Inspire Human Potential. And to celebrate the release of my book, we are hosting events in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney to start a conversation on all things work, people and place and how we can elevate the human experience. Today is part 2 of my conversations from the Brisbane launch event. And in part 1 was my interview with Rob Sendall, the director at Hall Chadwick, which was led by Nadia Taylor, the CEO of Mapien. In this conversation, we explored unearthing a brand story, how Hall Chadwick went back to its roots to redefine the employee experience. So if you haven't had an opportunity to tune into part 1, I highly recommend you doing that. So hit pause on this episode, go back and tune into that one, and then come back here and join us again. So if you're still here, you've either already listened to that one or you're just returning us after tuning in. So thank you. This episode is part 2 in the 2-part conversation from the Brisbane launch, where we were talking about everything from work, people and place with my panellists, Rob Sendall, director at Hall Chadwick, Nadia Taylor, CEO of Mapien, Jessica Sharpe, the Chief People Officer at Entain, and Kate Hill, Corporate Real Estate at APA. In this conversation, we cover topics from employee experience to brand experience in the workplace, the purpose of our workplaces in a post-pandemic world, and the controversial 4-day work week and what flexibility does and can look like in various organisations. This was a fun conversation that challenged the views and perspectives even of my panellists as they engaged in some pretty lighthearted banter, stretching the ideas of what is possible. Please let me introduce you to Rob, Nadia, Kate and Jess as we explore everything to do with work, people and place.
So we've got Kate Hill. Now Kate is the corporate real estate for APA. So Kate is a successful program manager with over 20 years experience in both public and private sector, delivering large-scale transformational workplace programs. She leads high-performing teams through her extensive experience in operational management, strategic implementation, project management and stakeholder engagement to deliver workplaces that inspire organisations and their employees to realise their true potential. So thank you for joining us, Kate. I also have Jessica Sharpe joining us here, and she is the Chief People Officer at Entain Australia. And if you're not familiar with Entain Australia is the home of Ladbrokes and Neds here in Queensland. So Jess is the Chief People Officer for Entain Australia and has enjoyed a career implementing and leading the HR function within the business across multiple industries. Her work in scaling startup teams has delivered success in driving fast and effective outcomes. In addition, she has established innovative frameworks for enhancing organisational performance and a continued focus on human behaviour and the interplay of technology and people. With combined degrees in commercial and postgrad psychology, Jess is a passionate proponent of lifelong learning and coaching individuals to fulfil their potential in life and work. An avid sports fan, she has found a combined joy at Entain in enabling people and teams towards success in an exciting and challenging industry. When she's not at work influencing and optimising human behaviour, Jess is at home attempting to do the same with her 3 boys. So thank you very much to my panellists here this evening. I brought you guys here together because I think that you guys have all been doing some pretty amazing work respectively in each of your organisations and what you've been able to achieve. And I would really like to shine a spotlight on that and for you guys to share that here tonight with us all. So my first question to you all is around employee experience. And this is a topic that I am extremely passionate about. And you can see by the way that I approach the work I do that I like to make this a big part of it and communicating the business brand through the spaces that I create. Now, we've already discussed a little bit of this tonight with Rob already, but I'm really interested to hear from your perspectives how you view employee experience and how you feel this has been embraced in your workplaces and the relationship that this has had to your brand experience. Jess, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Employee experience is now really at the centre of everything that we do. It was very much behind a lot of our thinking when it came to our workplace design. We have a phrase we've coined, and I'm sure it's somebody else's, but we've stolen it, that we say and we think about what we can do to earn the commute. So we operate in a hybrid environment and we think about what it means for our people to come into the office. So what can we do to earn the commute? Because what's the difference between sitting at home for them behind their screens than it is to come in at the office and sit behind their screens, which is effectively what they do. So we've really tried to think about what can we do to earn the commute? What can we do to enhance the experience of coming into the office, whether that's through team experience, whether that's through the space that we've created and how we can optimise and use that for experiential-based experiences. And we've also adopted this surprise and delight philosophy where everything that you do as an employer, no matter how pioneering or exciting it may be in the first instance, will become an expectation in a matter of moments. So we've really tried to focus on how can we keep surprising and delighting our people without setting ourselves up for a reality where they expect everything that we've delivered for them. And in the technology space, that was such a fad for the last 10 to 15 years of pool tables and, lollies and food machines, whatever it may be. Then techies just became like spoiled brats. And so we've really tried to think about how can we avoid getting ourselves into a position where that's an expectation and we spring stuff on people and keep the element of surprise and keep creating moments that matter.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds like you guys are doing some pretty cool stuff there then.
We are trying.
So I've got a few notes because my memory isn't what it should be. So I want to make sure that I pay respect to all the team that I work with and make sure I acknowledge all the things that I should say. Apologies, but I do have notes. So I think the thing about APA, I've been with APA since the end of 2019. We are not a company that surprises. We're engineers, so we provide critical infrastructure. We don't surprise our staff, but what we do is we have now got into a position where we provide a workplace that will support them. There's no surprises. Initially, when we started, there was, I don't know if it was a surprise, but what we produced for staff was beyond their expectation. And we had people in our Perth office say, but this is too nice for us. So we'd previously worked in sites that were just appalling. I think APA is it's a silent achiever. We are an ASX top listed 30 company, but really nobody knows who we are. And that works quite well for us in some respects, but in other respects, it's not that great because up until we moved to our new space in Entain at the end of last year, we found it very difficult to attract staff and engineers. For any of you that know the market, are very hard at the moment in oil and gas to get them to want them to work for your company. And I think at APA, we are a very steady company. We're a trusted company. We have, our customer promise to our customers that we listen to understand and we will work with you to, meet your expectations and provide solutions that meet your requirements. So while in some aspects of the business, it's very forward-facing, at the core of our business, we're very reliable. And what we had is workplaces that weren't reliable. We had technology that wasn't reliable. So what we did over the last couple of years is we've developed a workplace now that supports our brand. When you come into an APA workplace, you know it's an APA workplace. We've had a massive technology uplift, which has been a significant driver for these new sites. And when we did our initial engagement with leaders, customer experience and brand was a very big driver. So wherever you go in the country to our new sites, at the front of house and the back of house, you know it's an APA site. Yeah. So I think they've been quite successful.
Yeah. And how about you, Nadia? And particularly, I know, beyond even your own workplace, what you're seeing with other organisations as a fellow workplace strategist on the people side?
Well, I guess starting with our own, because we set a very high standard for ourselves in terms of people practices and people experience. So if we're not doing it right now, how can we advise others to do it? And we very strongly believe in a values-first culture, and that I guess like individuals, individuals have their own values, and those values help create their sense of identity. And it's the same with your organisations, your organisational values, and the identity that that organisation has really drives the sense of belonging and that experience.
And the physical workplace is like that. It is the same, just the same as our physical clothes that we wear represent our personal identity. So does the workplace. So the first thing in terms of your employee experience is whether that identity is reflected in the surrounds that they're in. So that's very much a key driver for us. And we often recommend Mel, and because we go into workplaces where we see cultural challenges, and part of those cultural challenges, an element is often driven by the physical space that they're in and the elements around that. So that's a huge thing for us. Certainly the research shows, if you talk to our organisational psychologists, that the foosball tables are not doing it. And that's what I really love in terms of, there's all sorts of employee engagement and survey type things you can do to help support your employee experience design. But unless you're backing that with real research around what drives people's sense of belonging and engagement with your organisation, you're really just playing with fun stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the meaningful stuff around learning and development, a sense of progression within your career, and a sense of purpose about what you do in your work on a daily basis, and also the ability to perhaps access mastery at a point in your career. Those are the things that we're seeing are consistently continuing to drive value and experience for people in every workplace, regardless of what the specifics of your culture and your work are.
Yeah, great.
Mel, I'll just add to that as well, because I think it's really important to differentiate the idea of employee experience, where we really doubled down last year and the year before with your partnering with you and the work in getting the experience of coming into the office and the benefits that come along with that down pat, but to not forget about the idea of employee experience having such a strong connection to the ability to get the job done and the experience of getting the work done. And that for us is now that we've got that hygiene factor under control, where you can come into the office or be at home and have your environment conducive to beautiful furnishings and surroundings and feel good and facilitate belonging. Now we're really doubling down, and my change team are here tonight because a lot of their work is around how are we doing the work? What are our software programs? How is our collaboration going? How efficient is that? What's getting in the way of us having a good experience in actually getting our jobs done? Because that talks to your point around purpose.
Yeah.
What are we actually here for? And it's to do our best work. So to not forget about that element when we talk about employee experience.
And I think that's a really good point that you raised there, because employee experience isn't just cultural and it's not just the physical environment, the technology that sits underneath that and making sure that the software is enabling that as well. It's this very holistic view and making sure that all of these parts are singing from the same hymn sheet to make the whole experience work. Yeah. So it's a really good point. Thanks, Jess. Rob, how are you going with that?
From an accountant's perspective, and I look after businesses, talking to business owners all day, every day, but from our perspective here at Hall Chadwick, our employees are our biggest cost, but they are also our biggest asset. So if you don't get your employee experience right, then you're putting your biggest asset at risk. And we don't want to do that, because if you put that at risk, then your business is going to fail. So having that right environment where the employee experience can be as good as it possibly can be, you have to do that in your business to set yourself up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings me to my next question, because the concept of work and where we work has changed significantly over the past few years. And a lot of organisations are really reconsidering that purpose of their physical workplace. I mean, you guys have already spoken about that here tonight. And recognising that while we no longer use that as a central place of where work gets done, it still is an important purpose in facilitating that belonging, community, collaboration, connection. And they are really fundamental elements of how teams can work at their best. You know, even a recent McKinsey survey found that more than half of employees had left organisations in the last 6 months because they didn't feel valued or they didn't feel like they belonged. And so while work has changed, I think it's really fair to say that as humans, we haven't. We still want that connection. We still want to feel like we've got strong relationships. We still want that strong sense of belonging. I'm interested to know how your organisations have approached this and the purpose and the use of space post-pandemic. And I think, Kate, do you want to start? Because I know that you guys have completely shifted your whole attitude to that.
So when we started, we worked with workplace strategists. We started our work in early 2020. We had an idea about how our people were working, So when we started was pre-COVID. At that time, only 43% average utilisation. So even though everyone thought everyone was at their desk every day being really, really busy, they weren't. And we had an understanding of how our people worked, and what we were able to do is, because of COVID, it really consolidated and allowed us to push the envelope on how we could change our workplace into the future. So I think probably the thing that drove it the most, that made our, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but the fact that IT, because everyone here who works on these fit-outs knows that IT is always an issue, is that IT, the driver for us was that IT could now support this future workplace that we wanted to build. It also meant that, we could have some people coming into the office, but working from home would still be a viable option. So we really pushed that. I think what we're also able to understand is and consolidate our view on when people did come back into the office, or what they wanted to come into the office for, was really to connect. So they wanted to see their mates, and they wanted to, meet as teams and all those sorts of stuff. So we sort of had a look at the settings that they had at our old site. We spent a lot of time working with the business, with all the people within the business, and understanding how they would work when they came into the office. So I think what we have now is a space. We've been in our space for approximately 6 months in Ann Street, and we've been in our space in Perth for about a year, and we really have a very wide portfolio and view of how APA can work. And obviously there's different sites and nuanced in different ways. Primarily APA is a project-based organisation, but what we understand is that in this sort of post-pandemic world, when people come into the office, they want to connect, they want to work in settings that support that. And then they also want to have, and this is primarily due to the technology we provide, they want to be able to work from home.
Yeah.
And I think it's that flexibility, and I think that's what we've aimed to achieve in our work.
Yeah, it's being able to have that choice.
That's right. Well, with APA, we don't have a lot of staff. We have 2,000 people. But where geographic spread is across the country. It's very wide. We have quite a few corporate spaces, have a lot of small offices. Our largest office, which is not our head office, is here in Brisbane, which has about 500 people. But when we first started in 2020 with our strategy, when we looked at it and started, we thought, yes, this is what we think we need. But COVID helped us.
Accelerated that.
People were like, yes, they can work from home. They are flexible. They can adapt to things quite quickly.
Shift people's perceptions.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Yeah. Nadia, do you want to go next?
Sure. I guess our experience is a little different in that the design, the agile workspace that Mel designed for us almost prepared us for COVID. So we were really fortunate. One of our values as an organisation pre-COVID was flexibility. And that obviously is flexibility in everything, not just about working arrangements, but being flexible with our clients. When we don't do cookie cutter solutions, it's all about tailoring and responsiveness. And I think, we genuinely tried and believed that we provided a fairly flexible workspace prior to moving, but definitely moving to that space shifted people's mindsets around what flexibility really meant, and then combining COVID into that. So I think we had flexibility very much for our professional staff, but our support team, it was a bit different. And that always jarred with me because, because people, what's their job? They need to be physically in the office. That always jarred with me because another key value we have is fairness. And I think what COVID helped do was push that envelope, to use Kate's words, to say, well, actually anyone can work from home. And we have to earn the commute, and it reminds me of what my mum used to say about family Christmas. You do it whether you like it or not. You're not going to enjoy Christmas if someone tells you that, right? So it's not about saying you've got to be in the office whether you like it or not. It's about making them want to be in the office, but also acknowledging that sometimes people do work a lot better in different spaces or from home. And therefore you need to say, well, what is the purpose of them being physically there? You do need to set some expectations and structures around attendance and things like that, but it's about saying what's the purpose of them being in the workplace, and is it to collaborate. And so, the things, I'm sure there's lots of other organisations that take this approach about everybody has to be in on one day. So we have a 50% attendance arrangement, and that is for all staff, regardless of your role in the office. And there is one particular day where everyone needs to be in, and then we discourage video calls and interstate meetings and things like that. I mean, the last comment I just want to make is about the difference that I've seen in other offices where we haven't changed the space and we haven't gotten people used to the idea that if you're reading material as opposed to having a meeting, as to working on a laptop, it is good to shift yourself because it helps shift your brain and your thinking. And I think in our one office that doesn't have that agile space, we see that affects the way they work. And so I'm really looking forward to, because our lease is up at the end of this year, to be able to bring that.
That's exciting.
Enjoying the episode? I would love it if you would share this show with just one person who you think it would inspire. Just one. The more we can share the insights of what it takes to make work work, the closer we are to elevating everyone's experience of work.
And Jess, I mean, you guys have only recently moved in, even more recently than APA, into your space. How has that connection to belonging and the purpose of the way that they're using the space changed?
We love it. Like, we increased in size by about 45% on our headcount in the last 12 months. And we did that during a time when we were commissioning Mel's work and redesigning our office. So we effectively hired around 300 people in the last 12 months, an additional 200 to our headcount, and kept our floor space. So our focus on that in our hybrid model is to get people in together. So there might be days that are really bustling and busy, and that's usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is when most of the teams want to come in. So there's a real vibe in the office on those days, and it's buzzing and it's busy, and there's quieter days on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, albeit we have structured teams that come in on different days. So we've really tried to artificially create a sense of community and belonging with getting lots of people in together, and just the connection that they feel, you know, by making sure that people are in together and not just like too much freedom to go, well, you can do uber flexibility, and then people come in at various different times. They don't know when their team's going to be in. They don't know when other teams are going to be in. So they can't count on the fact that there's going to be other people there. They can't count on the sense of community that they can form or the lunches that they can organise. So we've tried to reduce the amount of decision-making around that by creating that level of community by force, I suppose, but it's beneficial.
It's such a challenging thing to navigate at the moment. And like you said, if you're not having some sort of structure, it makes it very challenging for organisers. So it's interesting the different approaches that businesses are taking. And Rob, I know that that's a very different approach to what you guys have taken here. Do you want to share with what's been happening here?
Yeah, sure. We have a hybrid work policy. Mel must have been Nostradamus, because she must have known the pandemic was coming, because apart from the forced lockdowns, that had no impact on our office. So social distancing was never an issue here, which was, amazing. You know, we moved in here a year and a half before the pandemic hit, and really our work processes were probably a little bit from a number of the other businesses here tonight, they really haven't changed. Because of the demand, we do have a hybrid work policy. But as I mentioned earlier, most of our staff actually want to come in and be in here and be in these premises and work here with their teams. Interesting, Jess, you said that Tuesdays and the Thursdays are the office days. They're generally if you want to work from home days, they're your work from home days, because sort of Monday is a bit of a, get the team together, what's happening during the week. Friday is, we have a morning tea, if there's presentations to be made or awards or what have you, that's our Friday morning tea day. And a lot of them, as a team, go out and have a bite of lunch together or what have you, so they come in on a Friday anyway. So yes, we have that hybrid work policy, but it is a bit different for us because the majority of them want to be here anyway.
You've changed maybe you haven't changed, but you've got your office routines and rhythms to support Monday and Friday working by what that community building element is in terms of, how you're supporting that for employees to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. The hybrid work policy that we do have is more often used now to go, oh, look, I've got a doctor's appointment, it's close to home. Can I work from home tomorrow?
Yeah.
You go, no worries at all. We've got the technology to be able to do that. That's what, we had that prior to COVID. It's better now post-COVID because that's what we needed to do. But it is more for us in particular, more just that ad hoc. Yeah, and we do have that flexibility to pick up the kids from school on a Wednesday and Friday afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. That's no problem. So we're probably more the exception to the rule. Certainly talking to friends of mine in government and what have you that are trying to get people back into their offices and they can't.
Yeah.
We're probably a little bit of the exception to the rule where they want to be here.
Yeah, and you come in here and there's always bustling and there's people at desks. You certainly don't see that 40% vacancy. Which brings me into my final question for you guys tonight, which is talking about the 4-day workweek results. So we've recently got these out of the UK trials and they've reported to be an overwhelming success. And I look at you guys laughing. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the stats that have come out, 61 companies participated and 56 of those companies are continuing the 4-day week and 18 of these have confirmed it to be a permanent change. The stats are that 39% of employees said they were less stressed, 71% had reduced levels of burnout, anxiety, fatigue and sleep issues have all decreased, mental and physical health has improved, work-life balance has improved, and 54% are saying it's easy to balance work and household jobs. The overwhelming piece at the bottom is we all talk about, how's that all stacked up for company revenue? They've all reported that it stayed the same with an average increase of 1.4%. So, given the reported success of the 4-day work week in the UK, what are your thoughts on this? Is this something that your organisation is considering? And if it's not, what are some other opportunities that you may have explored as a business to offer enhanced flexibility to your employees? Now, Entain have implemented a 9-day fortnight and it's been in place for 18 months now and it's continuing. So I'm going to throw to Jess first to sort of give your perspective on this.
Yeah, I love this topic, obviously, but, for us, and I always love those stats because it's like, as if anyone's going to report that their sleep and their well-being wasn't exceptionally better after only working 4 days a week. But nonetheless, I get it. And as a business, we made a very clear decision 18 months ago to implement our 9-day fortnight. For us, that was at a time where we had very clear outcomes that we wanted to achieve from introducing that. So we had led in with a lot of research around wellbeing, burnout. That was very topical coming off the back of COVID. So there was absolutely this element underpinning a lot of my research and a lot of my thinking. But then we had this exceptionally aggressive growth strategy, as I mentioned before, where we had to increase our headcount by 41% in that 12-month period. We're in the tech industry, so gambling, online wagering business, but we are basically a tech and marketing business. The talent market was arguably the worst we've ever seen in our generation, as you would all know. So we were coming into that growth target, pushing up against all of the odds. So we had to do something that was going to put our name in lights and really cut through. So that was a big outcome for us around the 9 day as well. And I said to my CEO at the time, it's not a matter of if, but when we do this. So we can either capitalise on this right now and be one of the pioneering businesses and use it as an opportunity to really stand behind what we believe in and put our name in lights, or we can wait and we can do it by force, which is what you now see a lot of organisations are doing. It's a matter of time. So for us, we did it. We dove right in and did it. Credit to my CEO for, he's a bold, ambitious entrepreneur and he backed it. It's been a huge success for us. So we hired 300 roles in 12 months in that market, which was unthinkable. We had the lowest turnover we've had in pre-COVID times in our business. So those metrics alone were really standing behind this being something that was of huge value to our employee base. But in the same breath, we onboarded 300 new staff. We continued to grow and we hit all of our financial targets as a business. So measuring productivity is very challenging in the knowledge worker base. What does that look like? What does that measure in terms of what it means for an organisation? So we hit all of our financial targets and we increased our market share relative to our competitors. So for every metric that we could consumably review in regards to how did this work for us or not work for us, was undeniable that, it had zero impact on our performance and our productivity, and our engagement scores are relatively higher than every other market in our global. Entain's a FTSE 100 organisation. So our Australian colleague base had engagement scores that were 13 basis points higher than the rest of the organisation. So we had some very compelling data that supported that decision.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch the implementation of this. So thanks for sharing that. I think it's very inspiring for us to see how this can actually work.
Exciting project.
And it's not just looking at, the fact that people are working 9 days versus 10 days, but the financial impacts, the productivity impacts that are happening on a business. Yeah. Kate, What are you seeing happening at APA? Are you guys going to adopt the 4-day work week?
We've already adopted it. So, as I said to you, we have a very broad geographical spread across the country. So many organisations have it as well, but we do have an employee proposition at APA. And one of those pillars is the work-life balance and flexibility. So they talk about flexibility in your working hours and flexibility in your working pattern. You know, we're a projects-based company. So I think the thing is, what happens a lot of the time is people are engaged to work on a 5-day working week, or 40 hours a week, or 37, or you're on a shift if you're working in our integrated operations centre here in Brisbane, which runs 24/7. And then as you get to understand how the business works and what your role is in the business, and you may be working on projects, and then you have a downtime, then you have an uptime, it's flexible. So that's, I think, the biggest thing with our workplaces and the way they operate at APA. It's very driven by flexibility. So we already do have this 4-day work week in practice. There's a couple of members of the On the Move team who have in the past worked a 4-day week, but now as we transition into delivering these projects across the country, it can be done, but it's not feasible. And the benefit is it flexes with individuals' requirements. So, for example, if you've got to have a baby, you come back to work, maybe you take whatever the 18 weeks of paid leave is, it's 36, and then you come back in and then you say, look, actually I only want to work a 4-day week. And you say, well, we can do it, we can work with you. So it's very individualised. It's not like this whole department is going to do this. So the flexibility in the way that you work and what you want to achieve in certain periods of your career and the certain projects that they're working on at the moment it's very flexible.
Wonderful. I didn't know that, so thanks for sharing that. Nadia?
Yeah, so a little bit similar. I might just talk sort of globally in terms of what we would be saying to clients, talking to us about it, and then about our own organisation. So I think the stuff that Jess talked about, all of the research shows that ultimately motivation is what drives productivity, right? That sense of progression and outcomes-focused management of people rather than hours-based management of people is what drives engagement and fulfillment and job satisfaction in the workplace. So it makes sense that you would get those results from, instead of counting time, reducing it and emphasising outcomes rather than the number of days that you work. So flexibility, I think, and focusing on wellness so that people are able to perform at their peak in the number of hours that they work, I think is really important. I think that does need to be balanced with how that is done in the context of the particular workplaces. And, you know, I was having a conversation earlier tonight about, you know, in some workplaces that just means condensing the same amount of work into less days, which is actually less beneficial for your well-being, right? So it's about how a particular employer manages that. For us, it's what I call extreme flexibility, similar to what Kate has talked about. I think professional services, particularly those that still bill by the hour, are going to really struggle. It probably almost be the last industry that do it because of that issue. You're still counting hours fundamentally as the productivity. The way we have dealt with it is that it is all about flexibility for the person's needs. So there are people that work a 4-day week. There are people who work shorter days. There are people in our organisation who have what we call school holiday leave, where they are only expected to do 50% of their normal output during school holiday periods because they have older children who they need to be around but not all the time, so they can get work done and still be there and available for them. So that suits that group of people. We have a migration agent who has just gone to work from South Korea for 8 months so she can be with family. We had one of our EAs move back to London during COVID and service overnight to her team. And there's a heap more that our team over there could share with you, but it's all about what does the person need and then setting the expectations around the give and take, because that's what flexibility is. Part of the, the migration agent I'm talking about, we know she goes out of her way to make sure it works for her, that she can deliver what she would be here. She makes an effort to continue to engage with her team while she's in South Korea, and she's still very much part of the team. So that, I think, horses for courses and delivering what people need rather than a formula, that's what works for us. Obviously harder in a much bigger organisation, and then setting some kind of framework around that. So that people can work within that.
But interesting you note that, your person who's working in South Korea is working harder to demonstrate their ability to be able to do that while they're remote.
Because they really value it.
Yeah.
And I know, Rob, I'll give you your airtime in a minute. But I love this conversation because I think it's particularly challenging for you, Rob, and it's particularly relevant now in that we need to have such a different perspective on what the brain can produce within the limitations of the span of a day. And we know now from neuroscience that that is really hard pressed beyond 4 hours a day. So we talked about this really briefly when we're talking about time billing particularly, how are we putting a value on what the brain can produce within
The quality of the work.
The quality of the work that a brain can produce within 6-minute increments, especially now that we've got ChatGPT in our lives. So I think this is going to blow this topic right out of the water, particularly for you time billers back there. And I've spent many years in professional services, so I really understand the challenges of WIP management and writing off time and what that looks like and what that means in your space. So I think this is going to escalate very, very quickly around what is meaningful cognitive contribution every day anyway. We are all maxing out at 3 to 4 hours. So what are we doing with the rest of that time every day?
And over to you, Rob.
There's no doubt in professional services, accounting and law firms are probably the two main there that, we do charge on hourly rates. So we look at it and go, and you got to understand what the 4-day work week means. Does that mean, a 5-day work week you're doing on a 38-hour week, you're doing your 7.6 hours a day? Or does it mean because you don't have to commute, you take the commute out, you're doing your 9.4 hours per day?
Yeah.
So where we charge on, we do charge on an hourly rate. We keep, all our professional, including admin, keep a timesheet. So we keep a log of that. So we've got real data on productivity, write-offs. That's live data for us. And that's how we bill our clients. Our engagement letters with our clients are, we will charge you on an hourly rate. So if the hours aren't being produced, then on that model, we need more people to produce the same hours to achieve the same result for our existing clients. Or we've got to say to 1/5 of our clients, we can't do your work anymore because we don't have the capacity with our existing resource.
And it impacts your revenue and your profit and everything else that comes
so
with an
we need more
organisation.
people, so we need more space, so our lease goes up, or everyone works from home. But in professional services, so from the undergraduate accountant to the graduate, to the intermediate, to the senior, to the supervisor, to the manager, to the salary partner, the director, everyone is mentoring someone else. And we know through our COVID lockdowns, it took 20 to 30% more time to get a job completed. Everyone was busy, but because you didn't have that connectivity actually physically there in the office to actually just tap someone on the shoulder and go, hey, quick question here, what do I do here? Because we didn't have that connectivity, our workflow actually slowed down. So it is absolutely different in every business. And, the accounting industry and the legal industry has got some massive challenges ahead. And we're aware of that. We don't know what to do about it. But we do have some that the hourly rate, side of things is how we've always done it. And it is going to change in the future. But what that looks like, I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time for you guys. And, the design and architecture industry isn't that dissimilar. We still charge on hourly rates for the majority as well. So thank you for that perspective. But look, I would really like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and thank you especially to our panellists here for sharing all of your wisdom, your inspiration, your ideas, what's working and, what hasn't worked so well as well. So thank you so much for you guys for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, tonight really would not have been possible without a number of special people, and firstly, these guys contributing their time and being present here for this conversation. I'd also really like to thank Hall Chadwick for giving us this beautiful space here tonight and hosting us, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. To Kate, who is Hall Chadwick's event organiser, marketing director, she has done an incredible job of coordinating everything here for me tonight. I really, really appreciate her. I'd also really like to extend a very heartfelt thank you to all of you that have supported me, who have inspired me and challenged me. To those that have been a sounding board in writing this book, you guys have given me thoughts and ideas of what our workplaces really could be. And helping me for clarifying a lot of my thinking too, and giving me the confidence to put a lot of those words into the book. So thank you to you as well. I'd like to thank each and every one of my clients for firstly entrusting me and the team to deliver their projects, and to those that have also enabled me to share those stories in the book here as well. I'd like to thank my mum who came here tonight, so thanks Mum. My older sister, I'm sure she's probably been completely and utterly bored tonight, but I really appreciate you coming anyway, so thank you. I'd also like to thank my eldest daughter, Malika, who is running around here somewhere. She has been helping out and joining us, and I really hope that when she joins the workforce that some of these really cool things that we've been talking about here tonight are a reality for her as well. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Mark Glover, who's hiding over here. Mark was formerly a director of Focus, and together his team has built this workplace and many others. So 5 of the 7 case studies that you'll find in the book have been completed by him and his team. So I want to say a big thank you to that. I'd also like to thank my husband, Michael, who is also hiding down the back there. Thank you for everything, honey. None of this would be possible, and that goes for the book. Anything at home, anything would not be possible, because it really is a partnership to make it work. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, honey. I'd also like to thank my assistant, Claire. Unfortunately, she's had to leave this evening, but she has done everything to put together tonight. She has done an incredible job of coordinating everything, making all of this happen, but not just for this book launch tonight. For the last 12 months, she has been by my side and helping me raise a baby, navigate projects, deliver on everything. So she has been an incredible support, and I'm so sad that she couldn't be here tonight to really see it all come together and to celebrate with me, but I really want to give her a massive shout out regardless. But I really want to thank everyone for coming along and supporting me tonight, for supporting the launch, and for really participating in this conversation.
I just want to say this is completely unplanned and unscripted, but I just want to cheers to Mel, because this is actually a night to celebrate her at the end of the day. Like, we're privileged to be here and have the opportunity to speak. We're all doing it because we're such big advocates of hers, but the work that she's done is incredible. I have so much respect for you. I've said that one-on-one. I'll continue to say it. You're a warrior, and what you've been able to achieve in the last 24 months that I've known you alone is incredible, and it's so impressive. And cheers to you, because you've done an amazing thing tonight releasing this book.
Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I cheered you back, but I spilt it. No, so thank you everyone, but please enjoy, eat, drink, be merry, and hang around for as long as you like. Thank you.